Thanks a million, Derek, and thanks for the invitation to be here with all of you this evening, and thanks for everything that you do and the rest of the group does to organize these TechWaterloo Region events, because as everyone knows, when you have a full-time job, doing these kinds of things takes a bit of extra effort, and so the fact that you make this a priority is great for all of us, so let's give them a round of applause to say thank you to them. And I also want to begin just by saying thank you to all of you for everything that you're doing to grow the tech and innovation sector here in Waterloo Region. I mean, without you choosing to come here and work in the companies that exist in this region, we wouldn't be having these kinds of events, and we wouldn't be seeing this region really just mushroom in terms of the opportunities that exist and the growth that we're seeing. So thank you to all of you for being part of the story and for being interested in how our community's evolving. So I really wanted to start by just giving you a little bit of a history of how Kitchener sort of got into the tech space, and then talk a little bit about our Digital Kitchener strategy. So as a community, Kitchener has always been one that's been focused around innovation and technological change. The reality is much of it occurred in the traditional manufacturing space over the years, whether we were talking about buttons and felt and shirts and shoes and automotive parts. That's really where we were focused for many years. And then as we approach the 21st century, we realized the world around us is changing. Those traditional jobs are leaving. We were ending up with empty factories in downtown Kitchener, great brick and beam buildings. And running out of space in suburbia in terms of where to grow. And so as a city, we said we need to really refocus our priorities, refocus our energies. We created a $110 million Economic Development Investment Fund in 2004, invested in a number of things, including the School of Pharmacy, a new library, but also into things like Communitech and Velocity and so on. So when the Tannery building was developed by Caden, who sort of said, you know what, we're going to take this as a long shot and make it happen, and then they were able to attract Communitech, Google, and Desire to Learn into that building initially, and sort of the rest is history in terms of how things have evolved in the city of Kitchener, both in terms of the startup sector, the scale-up sector, as well as large global companies like Global, D2L, and others. So speaking about being at the forefront of innovation, one of the things we recognize as a city is that we're going to encourage it from an economic development point of view and say this is the kind of community we're developing. We really needed to walk the talk as a city. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were embracing change going forward. And so we developed a Digital Kitchener strategy. We were one of the first cities in Canada to do that. Vancouver had one, Montreal had one, but a lot of cities hadn't yet. And so we did that. We had some community consultation as part of it, and really developed on a strategy that focused on 4 areas: being connected, being innovative, being on demand, and being inclusive. From a connected perspective, it was really better understanding the fiber optic, the broadband and wireless infrastructure that existed in the community and where some of the gaps existed. And then working with providers that exist in the community, private sector providers, to make fiber-based investments to fill gaps to better serve the community, because we knew that this was key and important if we were going to see our sector evolve over the long term. And secondly, we wanted to work to better understand 5G deployment and how the city can encourage these deployments. And so that's an area that we continue to work on. From an innovation perspective, one of the ideas that came forward was the creation of a Digital Kitchener Innovation Lab at Communitech. Many of you know Carl Allen Muncie. He was hired as our lab director at the Innovation Labs. And it was really looking for us to be part of the story of what's happening at Communitech, but more importantly also looking at how we can bring municipal challenges into a non-traditional environment and start creating solutions that would not only potentially benefit us as a municipality, but also provide opportunities for startups that wanted to either work with municipalities or startups that in fact maybe had ideas and wanted to build something out of that. The other thing that really sort of goes in this innovation space is the notion of the Smart Cities Challenge. And that, as you know, is a regionally led initiative. We were shortlisted and are now working on our proposal along with the other cities and towns in Waterloo Region. And we've been shortlisted for the $50 million prize, and we'll be getting our application in that regard. On the on-demand perspective, this really is focusing a lot around the idea of open data. And so in 2017, we launched our open data portal that brings more data that the city has onto this open access portal that we had. One of the first areas that we launched in 2017 was our tax and utility billing portal. So that provides residents with on-demand access to their billing information, consumption data, and their ability to engage tax and utility customer service through the portal. And this has been well received, and we're going to do additional areas in the future. And finally, the last one is the for inclusive piece. And this one was important to us because we recognize as a community, if we're going to grow, if we're going to evolve in the tech and innovation space, it's important that we bring the whole community along. And so what are we doing to make sure that those that are socially disadvantaged or financially disadvantaged are having access to technology as we go forward? So now as a city, we pretty much in all of our public facilities have free public Wi-Fi available as a municipality. We are continuing to build on that throughout this year, including some of our parks like Victoria Park and other places, so that if you want to just kind of chill in the summer and do some work there, you'll be able to. And we're doing a comprehensive review of all of our public access computers at things like community centers, libraries, and so on, to make sure we have better coverage across the city for people who don't have access to their own equipment. Going back to the idea of our Digital Kitchener Innovation Lab, some of the things that are coming out of it. Well, one of the first one was developing the streetlight network, and as you probably know, we throughout Waterloo Region switched to LED streetlights. In the City of Kitchener's case, we actually put an additional adapter on it, which has allowed us to create a mesh network throughout the city, which will really give us the ability to connect to virtually anything over the internet. And so that's been installed in 2017 and is also allowing us to better manage our streetlights and lower our energy costs, because we're actually dimming the lights in certain streets and so on, which is great in terms of energy efficiency, saves us money, and that money we're actually reinvesting for things like our Digital Innovation Lab. And we're looking to use that network for other purposes in the future, and I'll touch on a couple of them. One is wireless meter reading of service utilities. So this would allow us to have immediate live information, making our readings far more accurate and efficient, and would allow us to share this information with homeowners to give them live insights with regards to usage and cost and how they can actually make adjustments in order to save some money. We're also looking at wastewater management and monitoring. So in the early stages, we're looking to monitor water movements within the city, the Grand River, and stormwater management. And this is information that will be able to be fed back through us through this network. And finally, smart parking initiatives. Real-time awareness of where there is parking and where there isn't parking. Parking is like the bane of every municipality's existence. And we want to be able to share that parking information with local restaurants, businesses, to allow better access to both their employees and their customers, and make that available through their websites, their apps, and so on. And this would obviously also allow for increased efficiency for things like food pickups, Uber Eats, and other delivery services. So that, I think, gives you a bit of an overview of what's happening in the City of Kitchener, what we've been doing around the Digital Kitchener strategy. And again, I really welcome the opportunity to join you today. I unfortunately have another commitment this evening, and so I won't be able to stay to socialize afterwards, but I know there's regular events, and I'll look to come back hopefully to the December one, and maybe raise a drink or two with all of you for the festive season. So thanks again, Derek, and thank you to all of you.
All right, so with each presenter, we're going to have time for a few questions. So anyone have questions for Mayor Vrbanovic?
Don't be shy.
What happened to your leg?
So I was skydiving, and my partner's cables got tangled. No, so that's the news story, because the mayor of Hamilton told me that my real story sucked, and I had to come up with a better version. The real story was I was at one of 3 walks on a Sunday morning. On the 3rd one, I stepped badly off a stage by just stepping back, and ended up partially rupturing my Achilles and then shattering my elbow. So, but no big deal, because they took a few screws, a piece of metal, a surgeon, and a Robertson screwdriver, and they put me all back together again. So it was all good. Sorry? Yeah. But the really cool part is I learned I don't bring going through airport security at the airport. Apparently it's not enough metal. So go figure.
All right.
Other questions? Yes.
What do you think the biggest challenges are to being a digital interconnected city that you're facing?
So I think our biggest challenge, and one that both the leaders in our tech community and the leaders in our municipalities are grappling with, is how to make sure that as we grow as a community, to be frank, that we don't follow in the footsteps of cities like San Fran and so on, where you have this dichotomy that's existing between sort of the long-standing community and the new community. And we're working really, really hard to make sure that happens. In Kitchener's case, through things like the neighborhood strategy that we've developed, and through some of the events that we're doing, and just trying to integrate as much as possible with the tech community and make sure the story's being told and how important it is to the broader community's economic development and so on. I think some of the challenges are obviously going to be around gentrification and how to deal with housing affordability and all those issues. I think we're making some good progress, but there's more work to be done, to be honest with you, on that regard. And that's where I think things like this help, because it's an opportunity for you to become aware of issues and to see how all of you can actually be part of the solution, part of the story to make things awesome. Yes? Oh, sorry. I forget sometimes when you're used to chairing meetings and stuff, it's like, okay, go, you get to do it, Derek.
You're a good sharer. In terms of, like last year, there was a big message or a big program about a Waterloo Toronto corridor.
Yes.
And is that program still a kick-in, or what's next?
Absolutely. I mean, so I would tell you that it's certainly something very much that we are, continuing to pursue and dialogue about and work on from an economic development point of view. In fact, at the moment, there is funding requests into both the provincial and federal government, both by the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation as well as Toronto Global, to see how we can further build that out from an economic development point of view. The transportation link is admittedly a big piece of it. I mean, one of the biggest issues that honestly comes up, and Basen's, I'm sure, is hearing it as well, as she runs for regional council now, is the connectivity between our two communities. And I will tell you that when we met with all of the new ministers and parliamentary secretaries during AMO in Ottawa in August from the new provincial government, this was the #1 priority we left all of them with, both two-way all-day go, and also what's happening with DEA in terms of high speed and so on. I will say they all seem to get it. They understand the importance of this region to the overall Ontario and national economy. But they're a new government, and they're going through these fiscal reviews, and so they wouldn't make any outright commitments yet, other than it's a priority for us as well. So you can rest assured that as long as I'm in this role and subject to job evaluation on October 22nd, we will continue to strongly advocate on this issue going forward.
We'll do one more. Yeah.
Speaking of the election coming up, what do you think this crowd can do, or this crowd can do, to ensure that we get a higher voter turnout than we've had in the past, and based on what's going on in our provincial elections, or provincial government right now, it's more and more important that people
let's be honest. Looking around this room, this demographic is probably not the demographic that generally, from an age perspective, tends to vote the most. I'm generalizing a little bit here, but if you look at statistically, that is the case. And so, #1, I would encourage you get interested and get involved, and make sure you do vote. I mean, as was said, local government is, quite frankly, the most important order of government that exists in your life, that impacts your life on a day-to-day basis, from the moment you wake up to the moment you turn the lights out when you go to bed at night. And so it's always been, I could never figure out, since I was young and first started volunteering on campaigns, why does it have the lowest voter turnout? And part of it is because it is more complex, it doesn't have parties associated with it and so on, but that's actually the strength of Canadian local government, is we don't have that. And so we have independent people who come together and work to build consensus on issues and build community. And so number one, be interested. Number two, most importantly, go and vote. And number three, take a friend along with you and encourage them to do the same. And if we can do that, I think we can make a real difference throughout this region, and certainly in cities of Kitchener-Waterloo.
Perfect. Well, Barry, thank you so much for taking the time.